So you grew up in Bergamo,
Yeah,
Italy, right?
yeah.
And how was that as a child and having the outdoors on your doorstep and access to?
I born in a side of the city where they start the first hills that they become the Central Alps. So in front of me I have a small hill that became my first Everest. My first place where I can play, simulating to be an explorer or even a climber and so on. And I remember that when I was a child, I was playing a lot inside the forest with my two brothers or with some friends and so on. So everything started in a natural way, playing outside as much as possible in any weather condition. And so I received this kind of education. I was not scared about staying outside. And step by step, I also grow also technically, and they started to climb till the top of this small hill, and they saw there was another mountain. And so the desire to grow also in terms of playground, it was quite spontaneous and natural. I was not only walking or climbing, I was doing also several different sports, cross-country ski or competition, swimming or running, soccer. So as a typical Italian child, I have also to deal with the soccer and so on, but I was fascinated about everything that was related with the nature.
So were you doing winter climbs at that age? Or did you touch on it?
No, my first winter experience were in skiing, so the classic alpine ski or cross-country ski. So I was relating with the cold just because it was the element that was creating the snow, that was something that I was playing with. But I remember, and also now, my mother told me and tell me that I was always wearing nearly nothing, always t-shirt or a very light jacket and so on. So probably without any specific plan, I was indirectly training probably for the cold temperature or moving a lot, so producing heat. And probably this is why I love cold and I suffer a lot in the heat. That is not typical an Italian attitude, but it's mine.
So you think as a child then you've got so exposed to the cold that's made you more resistant now?
Yeah.
It's like something which perhaps would phase someone who hasn't had that level of exposure then?
Yes, I think so. I have to admit that everything starts from the education you receive. So I never had any forbidden things that I couldn't do related in the nature. So my mother and my father, that was a wonderful person, and they are a wonderful person. They never scare me about, be careful in the forest, be careful it's cold, be careful it's raining, be careful it's cold. Because they trust a lot in the natural attitude and intelligence of the kids. When you are hungry, you tell to your mom, I'm hungry, or if you are cold, I'm cold. So when they saw me that I was not screaming because it was cold, I was not alerting anybody, so they let me play. And I grow naturally. And honestly, I have to admit, also watching my teammates today, 40 years later, I am one of the few that is always happy and not taking care about the cold. Not because I'm not getting fear, but I'm feeling good.
Yeah, you're in your element.
Yeah, in my element, so mountain and cold.
Yeah.
And that's why probably I built my climbing career on the elements that I deal with in a better way, compared probably to the others. So I climb in the summer, I climb in many different regions, in all the continents. But I discovered that also how fast I can acclimatize and get acclimatization in for high mountain, for example. In the winter, you are sweating less, so I'm not losing so much liquid. I'm much faster in compare in the summer. So the same person, myself, in the summer and the winter. In the summer, I'm suffering much more. So also at the end, the performance is very much, let's say, reduced due the sweating, due these difficulties. And so when I started with the climbing expedition, and I did 60 climbing expeditions in my life, the second was already in winter. And I was counting in these days, I'm finishing to write a book about my last winter experience. I did 15 climbing expeditions. And if you consider that every expedition is 3 months long, if you multiply 3 into 15, I spent nearly 4 years completely 24 hours in winter on the highest mountain. So it means that I feel good.
Yeah, that's something special, I think. So did you have any sort of key role models growing up and key influences in
Yes.
what pushed you to...
I have an iconic person or a very inspirational person in my life that was, and it is Reinhold Messner. It is one of the most famous mountaineers of the history. And he's living very close where we are now in the Dolomites. And he always inspired me because he was not only a strong rock climber, but also a strong ice climber and then a strong high altitude climber. Then he wrote nearly 100 books.
Yeah.
He is able to speak 3 different languages. He is also a businessman. So he built a fortune and a fame based on different abilities, not only muscular abilities. And this gave me the idea that he is a very complete person, that he can fit in any situation, in any kind of discussion, also philosophical, ethical, not only sportive or alpinist discussion. So it was a model that I try to learn from. I don't want to be his copy, or a bad copy of Reinhold Messner. I want to be myself. But it had been a model for me, and I'm still following.
Yeah, cool. So do you have like before you set out on an expedition, do you have to like get yourself into a certain mental state before you go, or do you? Just you're the same all the time, and then you.
What I can tell you is very important to fall in love with your project, not just to be attracted. I don't want to appear rude. I make you an example. You can see a nice girl or a nice boy and say, I like him. Or you can see those persons and say, I love him. And the difference is huge. When you love someone or you love something, you are fully committed and you are ready to put all your power and all your effort to reach or conquer this love. And it's exactly the same in the mountain. And how I do. Usually I like to train alone. Okay, if I climb difficult phase, I need someone who is belaying me. But if I have to go running or ice climbing or doing something that is just an endurance activity, I need and I love to go alone because it's my mental training. I have not distracted by any talk or any different rhythm from the person who is near with me. And I think a lot about what I will do, what could happen, how ready I have to be. I think about the difficulties, I think about why the other failed, or if someone tried before, why he didn't reach the summit and so on. So it's a kind of mental preparation that at the moment it is my trick, my secret, let's say. Because I say that if I'm disturbed from elements coming from outside, I can't be so concentrated and it becomes very dangerous.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think I've read or heard you say somewhere that you do like a half marathon like every day in the lead up to
in the deepest moment of my preparation, so in the highest volume moment, I ran half a marathon per day. I reached till 140 kilometers per week.
Wow. So is that just... That's not just for
No, this is just physical. Then you have muscular preparation, so technical preparation. So there are a lot of training. In that period, it's important to stay far from the social media and from the mobile that is ringing and so on. So, and to be fully committed, the way I do it, okay, I need solitude, okay? And it works.
It's a good process you have in place. And you do the same thing every time before you do a big trip? Like you have the same kind of training plan?
Honestly, I never stop to train. It means when I come back from an expedition, I take 1 week, 10 days off. Yeah. After, I feel the desire, and this is important, I feel the desire to start immediately. It's not a must. I have to train because it's my job. No. I feel really the desire to be active, returning in the mountain. So this is a permanent, continuous way of living. since 1985, because before I was competing also in the World Cup competition of rock climbing, and then I jumped into the high altitude climb in 1992. So I always remember this kind of life. The things that is changed is that now, if you want to have a complete self-standing project, you have also to dedicate time sitting in front of a computer and write books, reply to the interview, do what we are doing now, relate with the people who buy your books or want a photo or want to listen to you. So the storytelling part is something that I like.
Yeah.
It's not disturbing me, absolutely. That's why I wrote 8 books, that it takes such time. I wrote in the night in the base camp, when I was in blocking the traffic. Okay, I was recording a chapter of some of my books, so I have to use all the time that I have.
So did you say you're working on a book at the moment?
Yeah.
Is this going to be about your recent winter ascent of
Peak Pobeda? I give you a news. Half an hour ago, I finished to read and correct the first 50% of the book that I wrote, and I ended 1 week ago. So during the North Face Mountain Festival, it finished, and it will born definitely my book, because yesterday I saw all the pictures and I put all the description of all the pictures that will be published. So now is what I'm doing, and I describe the wonderful and different experience I got on Peak Pobeda, or Gora Pobeda. Gora, it means summit, peak. And it was in Siberia. It's the highest peak of East Siberia. That it means the highest peak in the coldest place of the planet, where the temperature can arrive at minus 71.3 centigrade or minus 97 Fahrenheit. And so I discovered this place. I was looking if there were mountains there. I discovered there is a mountain range, 1,500 kilometers long, nearly unexplored, and the highest peak is Peak Pobeda, 3,003 meters. So I have the elements, I have an exploration, let's say, challenge, and I combine everything, and I realized with Tamara Lunger. So I describe this adventure that is not in high altitude, but in a very, very remote place where the sensation of to feel and do real exploration is complete and deep.
So that was the appeal of it, the exploration side, and the unique, obviously, mountain compared to anything else.
And you don't have to think that the exploration is only something geographical. So to be an explorer, you have to go very far. Sometimes you can be an explorer in the forest in front of your home, not following the trail, try to go straight between the trees, okay? Or try to find the explorer that is inside yourself. For example, if you have a dream and you never start to move forward to realize this dream, you start to explore your abilities, your commitment, and so on. In this case, it was a concentration of everything. To explore how cold I can do something, how far I can go, because it's very far place, how I can deal with such cold that even in the summit of Everest, you can have this temperature. It's much warmer. So it was a combination of many question marks, and I got the answer.
Did you have to prepare differently for it, how you would compared to one of your winters?
Honestly, not. What I changed is the strategy, because you can't train for such temperature except to be a person who born and live in such temperature, like the nomads, people that we deal with and we met and we joined also part of the expedition. So I understood that I can be slow, or I can get the same speed that I use in climbing a high mountain, because I understood that I can sleep so many nights outside. It's too cold. Also the cooking stuff is not working, the gas balloon are not working, and even the petrol, it can freeze. So I changed my training. I try to be faster, so working also on the top of my heart rate possibilities. And so I understood that I have to try a speed ascent, go and back, avoiding to do high camps. But the big question mark was, am I able to move so many hours without doing so? At the end, it was also a question mark, the strategy. And finally, the strategy was the right one. And also, I choose a cloudy day and not a good weather day, because I know that with the clouds, the temperature is not so cold. And exactly opposite what I do and what you do in Himalaya. You have to wait in nice weather and so on. So it was a combination of many elements, and at the end we went till the summit. We realized the first winter ascent of Peak Pobeda, and now is there not only Pobeda. I discovered this mountain range, and I spread the news that to my colleague, guys, there is 1,500 kilometers of virgin summits. They are waiting someone, so let's go there.
plenty of experience.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. So do you class any particular ascent as like your biggest achievement, or is it all kind of?
I have one criteria in my mind. It's my personal criteria, but it matches also with the general criteria. There are easy climb, there are difficult climb, and there are historical climb. A difficult climb you can do better and better and better, elevate your grade, your technical level. When you do something historical, it will remain forever. If I should ask you who climbed Everest for the first time, you tell me Hillary and Tenzing. And even Everest had been climbed 5,000, 6,000 times, the first had been Hillary and Tenzing. Will never disappear, will always remain. So I have the fortune and also the abilities, I have to admit, to realize 4 historical climbs. They were my first winter climb on 8,000 meter peaks, because there was the phase and the period where those peaks, the 14 8,000 meter peaks, has to be conquered, and they did it in between 50 and 64. And then is going to the end, the time where there is the exploration and the first winter ascent of those peaks. And they did 4 on the 14, and I am the only in the history who did it. So probably my iconic climb are those climbs that will remain forever in my mind and also in the climbing history.
That's fantastic. So I think alpinism or even mountaineering, I think a lot of people perhaps, or there are definitely people who find it intimidating, as like it's obviously you have to perform at a high level and everything like that, and it's quite scary for a lot of people. So in terms of starting out and being a beginner, like what advice would you give to someone who was interested but perhaps didn't know how to like?
It's clear. It's a clear question. You don't have to start climbing because you want to achieve a record or you want to become someone famous. You have to start to climb because it's funny and it's very nice. So when I describe Simone Moro kids, I was telling you I was playing outside. So everything has to be a game. Even when it's in high altitude, you have to get satisfaction and get to have fun into it. When I told you after 1 week, 10 days, I need to start to train, it means for me it's a part of fun. And when it's funny, something, you are not considered something like a sacrifice. For example, I have to run every day, I have to climb every day. It's not something heavy on you, it's something that you are looking for. And the second thing is, don't be afraid to be scary, or don't be afraid to decide to fail or to stop your climb, because we have to live for a dream and not to die for a dream. If I should talk about my 60 expedition, nearly the 30%, not 30% of my expedition I fail. And at the end, you can become famous, strong, you can write historical page, even failing, because when you fail, you learn a lot. And when you fail, you come back. So you don't have to be blind in front of the danger or blind in front of your fear. You have just to interpret it. When you understand that you are passing through the barrier of your acceptation of danger, your limits, it's better to stop and come back and don't pay attention what the others say, what the journalist will write. Okay, they will write fail, Simone Moro fail. Okay, it's one day. You have to support for one day that you are the title of the newspaper. The day after is something more. But you are still alive and you come home with the same motivation. Maybe you learn a lot. And so I really learn a lot, even more when I fail, not when I succeed. And I got one very important tip from a very famous mountaineer. His name was Ricardo Cassin. He told me, Simone, remember, it's not difficult to become a strong, famous climber. The difficult thing is to become a strong, old, famous climber. And inside those words, I understood the secret of this very famous pioneer. He died when he was 101. So it was a very authentic tip, and I want to keep it.
That's definitely wise words to live by.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for you.
Appreciate that.